Check 1, 2.
Oh, it's picking up.
It's this though. Can you guys hear me now?
It makes the volume more stable.
Does it really?
Yeah. You might want to turn on. Like, can I hear you?
I don't know. Can anybody hear me? Yay! So you can hear me now? So
It's kind of gaming.
I have to use my son's headset. We had moved some things around the other day so both of them could play. So sorry, it's going to look a little weird and a little funny. But, you know, welcome to church life. This is how church goes. We've been going so well, problem-free, and lo and behold, here's our first one. So thanks for being patient with that. I had to get rescued again, this time by Eli. I did have my duct tape for tonight. My lights are up, so if they fall, we'll take it out on the duct tape. But Eli saved my life tonight. So, well, that was fun. That was awesome. So anyway, what I was telling you earlier when I was muted and you could not hear me, we have a great announcement video coming out tomorrow that I'm really excited about. I don't want to tell you anything about it because I'm really stoked about it. It's going to be funny. It's going to be silly. It's just to bring a little levity to this whole situation. But please check that out tomorrow when we get it up. It'll be up sometime tomorrow. But it'll be, I promise. Well, I'm not going to promise. Hopefully you'll get a chuckle out of it. But anyway, so back to my list. Glad to see Rick Evans here. Glad to see Miss Christine and the Beamers and Burrows. Jamie Baldwin, Bonnie's here. The Canes, Miss Debbie Ide, Missy Davis, Miss Linda Short, Rosemarie Richichi, and the Lukes. So I'm glad you can hear me. Sorry, I've got the headphones on. Oh, there's Emma Matthews. Yay. But, you know, such is life. That's how life goes. It is what it is. It's always fun to do stuff like this when, when you want it to go well, it never does. Hey, Dan. So how about we pray? And then finally we'll get started. So pardon me for not taking my hat off, Mom. But, God, thank you for being an amazing God. Thank you for the sense of humor that you have given to us, that when things don't go the way we thought that they should, God, you allow us just to laugh about it because that's just, it is what it is. And so thank you for all the things that you have protected us from and watched out for us. And thank you for the bumps in the road that teach us humility, that allow us to laugh at ourselves, but allow us to see that we're just human. And so help us to be reminded of how much we truly need you and how you can do great and mighty things in us, around us, and through us, and in spite of us. And so I pray that tonight, as we work on Ecclesiastes chapter 4, that you would guide our thoughts and our conversation and our understanding, and allow us to just enjoy our time together tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. So as always, you are more than welcome to put in your thoughts on the right-hand side of the screen if you have an account. We've got some monitors that will be looking at stuff and checking stuff out. That way, if I miss something, they can get to it really quick. So just know that that's an option as well. So glad to see the Flu grads here and Savannah Portman as well. Oh, and there's the Parsons. All right, so Ecclesiastes chapter 4. So we left off last week with Ecclesiastes chapter 3, where Solomon is doing a great job of kind of reminding us that it's okay in the first 3 chapters to work hard and enjoy the fruits of your labor as long as we're keeping it in the right perspective. I think there's nothing wrong with working hard and climbing the ladder as long as we keep it in the right spot and in the right perspective. God obviously never wants us to be idle nor lazy, and there's plenty of verses that talk about that, but he does talk heavily about, hey, stay true to your course, stay focused on me, and do what I've laid in front of you or allowed you to have the ability to do, and go do it with everything you got, but do it for his glory and not our own. And when we hear things like that, that really goes against our human nature, because we want the glory, we want the reward, we want the pat on the back and the attention from that. And in this Christian walk, it's not really about that. It's about changing that perspective from that worldly perspective to a spiritual perspective of, this is about bringing glory and honor to him. The only way that I can do what I do, or Charlie does what he does, or you do what you do, is because God has granted us abilities and opportunities and wisdom and knowledge, and that's the only reason we can really do what we do. It's about Him. It's to point people to Him. And so Solomon has spent his entire life exercising his wisdom and trying to um, experience the world at the same time to see which one really pans out and if they can be married together. And he comes to this conclusion that everything that the world says is good and right and everything we should pursue based on what the world says, it's all pointless and useless. It's vain. It's vanity. But if we pursue things with the confines of trying to accomplish great things for God, for His glory and His purpose, and yeah, there's some benefits along the way for us, but it's ultimately our lives are His and we are to live for Him. That is where we are supposed to live, and that is where our life has meaning because we are living for Him. And so Solomon is talking about all of these things, and he's simply saying, all of this stuff, if we're living and doing it for the wrong reason, it is a waste of time. It is useless. It's um, just pointless. It's very interesting. And so he kind of ends chapter 3 with this idea that we'll never know kind of what's going to happen with our stuff. If we go back and look at the last verse, he says, "So I perceive that nothing is better than that a man should rejoice in his own works, for that is his heritage. For who can bring him to see what will happen after him?" So our heritage is just kind of celebrating the things that we're able to do, and yet nobody's going to bring us back from the dead to see the accomplishments and how they're going to live out and how people are going to use them later on. I'm not even going to care. Like, I'm going to be so focused on heaven and Christ and God and the characters up there and family members, if that's how that works. Like, that's what I'm going to be focused on. I'm not going to worry about what's back down here. That's a lot of sorrow. That's a lot of grief and sadness. And I'm going to be celebrating. I'm going to be happy as a little clam right there in the midst of glory. And so Solomon's saying, listen, nobody's going to be talking about it. Nobody's going to remember it. At some point in time, it's all going to go away and be just pointless. So let's get into chapter 4. Hi, Kristen, and hi, Hennigan family, and Ashley and Vinny. Let's get into chapter 4 and see where he takes us from that mindset. He says in verse 1, he says, "Then I returned and considered all the oppression that is done under the sun. And look, the tears of the oppressed, but they have no comforter. On the side of their oppressors there is power, but they have no comforter. Therefore I praised the dead who were already dead, more than the living who are still alive. Yet better than both is he who has never existed, who has not seen the evil work that is done under the sun." Now, this is a very interesting start to this chapter of how he is dealing with this whole idea of working in the world and working for glory and working for stuff and living for God and trying to manage all of that stuff. And he starts off saying, first thing I've noticed is no matter what we do under the sun, there's oppression. And so he kind of deals with this first group of people of the oppressed. And he says, look, the tears of the oppressed, for they have no comforter. He's talking about those that are just kind of held down, that never have a chance. And why are they oppressed? Maybe it's they're already broken individuals. Maybe they feel powerless. Maybe they feel out of control or there is no control. Maybe it's just the ability to not kind of rise up and take that next step. And so they feel pressured and they feel pressed and they feel very like almost like a foot's on their throat and keeping them in this spot by those that have power over them. Look at verse 2. Oh, excuse me. Still in verse 1, he says, on the side of their oppressors, that's where the power's at. And so I remember when I was a teenager working in a nursing home, how I had great ideas and great energy and passion for what I was doing, but I couldn't take that next bigger step because of my age and because of other legal issues as far as the nursing home was concerned. But I felt like, man, I want to do this and I can do this. I've got the energy. I've got the passion. Let me do it. And felt oppressed. I felt very just kept down. I loved my job, but I get that. I understand that. And I would imagine there's a lot of us that feel that way. We feel like we've kind of hit that threshold, that far reaching spot at our jobs, and we feel like the man is always keeping us down, or our bosses are always keeping us in this spot that we're not ever going to be able to get out of. And we feel oppressed. We feel powerless. We feel like we have no control over any of this. That's a common thing for most of us, if not all of us. At some point in our life, we all feel powerless. We all feel like control has been taken away from us. We all feel like, man, I'm never going to be able to get to that next level because of that person that's ahead of me. We feel that way. And so Solomon is addressing this, and he's saying, listen, they don't even have any comforter. There's nothing that they go to and try that's bringing them comfort. That's sad. That's really scary to think about, that there's no comforter. Now, we as believers, we know what the comfort is, the great comforter, and that is the Spirit of God and the hope that he provides us. But it's crazy at how, when we feel oppressed, nothing can relieve that. We try everything under the sun, all the normal things that have brought us happiness and joy and contentment before. And that oppression is just like a blanket, a heavy, thick blanket that just constricts us. And he says, there's no comforter for them. Their power is now in the hands of somebody else, and they can't do anything about it. So then verse 2 says, therefore I praise the dead who are already dead, more than the living who are still alive, yet better than both is he who has never existed. He says, those that have already died or are dead, listen, they've got it better. They've got it better. They've already arrived. It's kind of over for them. They don't have to deal with all this oppression. And maybe it's even talking about that sometimes those of us that are oppressed feel like it would be better if we were dead. I don't think he's nowhere near insinuating that suicide's the way out at any stretch of the imagination. But I do think he's talking about, you know what? There's something to be said about those that have gone. He even says, better than both meaning the ones that are oppressed and the ones that are doing the oppression. It says better than both who has never existed. Those that have never even been born or never existed, it's better for them. And then it talks about who has not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. I worry, try not to worry, but I worry about my children, my boys, especially, and even especially Emma, of who knows what this world is going to look like 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 10 years from now. And I'm concerned about what they're going to have to face and how they're going to have to live life, and how he's going to have to deal with things, or they're going to have to deal with things. They're going to see a lot of evil under the sun. And at some point I'm going to die, and I'm going to be better off because I'm not going to be here dealing with all that. I just think it's interesting that he starts with this idea of there's a group of people that are just in the spot of oppression. And so Bonnie says the Amplified infers that the oppressors have no comforter either, which I would agree with that. And even though they still have the power, there's no way for them to have the peace and the comfort that comes from anything that they could ever find. Because a lot of times when we have power, we feel like, well, I've got the money, I've got the stuff, and I'm going to be okay. And even the power and the money and the stuff does not bring us comfort like the Spirit of God can. Bill chimes in. He says he's continuing the same theme as speaking on opposing ends that he did in chapter 3. Absolutely. He's coming from both sides of the coin. So Mary Card asks, who is that never existed? My mind went to maybe those that have died before birth. Maybe he's just talking about people that just never existed. That my best guess would be maybe even those that have been taken in abortion, but that were maybe born and died early, or just have never lived life long enough to experience really the negative world that we live in. Bill says both Job and Jeremiah said it would have been better to have not existed than to see the suffering. And that is a great, true statement. There can't be much comfort or peace, Amy says, in being a heavy-handed ruler or hard, mean boss. And that is a true statement. That is not fun to be, nor fun to be under. And so, great thoughts. I appreciate all of those. Those are great. And so when we get to verse 4, now he's talking about another set of people, and he's talking about those that are kind of live in envy or kind of lonely. Um, excuse me. I'm sorry, just dealing with envy. Lonely is the next session. So when we deal with envy, he says in verse 4, again, I saw that for all toil and every skillful worker, a man is envied by his neighbor. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. So again, he's talking about people that kind of arrive. I kind of throw in that whole phrase of keeping up with the Joneses. It's just interesting that that's kind of something we all struggle with. We see what our neighbors are doing, or we see what our coworkers are doing, or we see what the guy down the street is able to buy or accomplish, and we we kind of get in that mode sometimes of, man, I wish I could do that, or man, I did sometimes some jealousy or some envy that kind of grows within us, and that's hard for us because we want to strive to accomplish great things, but when we get in this mode of transportation of thinking about what everybody else is getting and I'm not getting, that creates this avenue of envy, and that's what Solomon's talking about here. He's saying, listen, you can accomplish all that you want, but sometimes what that creates is envy for other people, or you can strive down here in the bottom and sin because of the jealousy in your heart or the envy that you're struggling with, by looking at what everybody else has and wanting what they have. And so he goes on in verse 5 and 6, and he says, the fool folds his hands. So he's talking about the lazy guy that kind of folds his arms back and sits back and just kind of doesn't really work hard. He doesn't really get after it very much. But he's at his job. He's kind of doing what he's supposed to be doing, but he's not giving it his all. So he's kind of not really a lazy guy, but not somebody that's just giving everything that they had. He says the fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. It's almost like he tanks his own self. So, for instance, if I was at a job, let's go back to when I worked at the nursing home. If I did barely what I was responsible for, but always stood around waiting to be told what to do, waiting to be encouraged to go back to work, and I just kind of stood around and had smart comments and just I did enough to make it look like I was working. At some point in time, that's going to cost me. It's going to work against me. And then I'm going to be angry, and then I'm going to be envious, and then I'm going to be frustrated, and then I'm going to feel oppressed. And so he's talking about people that kind of tank their own opportunities and their own responsibilities in all of that. And so it's very interesting that he's talking about that, because we kind of can find ourselves there sometimes, and that's tough. But then he says, better a handful with quietness than both hands full together with toil and grasping for the wind. Now I really had to think about this a little bit and kind of look at Barnes and see what he says, and he kind of comes at it from the aspect of maybe it's a little bit of sarcasm. He says it's kind of better that the guy that's kind of folded his hands back, that it's better that he only has just enough to fit in his hands without all the busyness and the stress of those that really work hard to accomplish great things. I'm just going to be happy with this little amount that I have. But then he says, then both hands full, but dealing with all of the toil and struggle that you have to do to be able to have both hands full. He's kind of using it as a comparison. Which one's better? Is it better to just sit back and not do a whole lot? Or is it better to strive but still be grasping at the wind, knowing that all of these things that I'm going after, they're not going to help me in the long run? It's such a crazy thing that Solomon is talking about and trying to help us understand. And I think if I were to pause right here and just kind of to talk about this one thought, I want to bring this up. I think so much of the frustration that we are experiencing right now is that we can't go do what we want to do, how we want to do it, when we want to do it. And it's forcing us to take a step back and see life for what it really is and what it really was. And it's causing us to consider maybe all the things that I had placed so much stress and importance and was striving for. I'm still alive. I'm probably happier now than I ever have been. I'm resting. What's really important? And I think Solomon in this entire book of Ecclesiastes is challenging us as believers to say, yes, you got to work. Yes, you got to live and you got to have stuff. But what's most important? What should you be looking at as the most important thing? And that we know is Christ. Dorothy asks the question, but if you are satisfied with what you have, what then? Well, Dorothy, I would answer it this way. Paul answers it best when he says, in whatever state in whatever state that I'm in, I've learned to be content. There's a great source of contentment where we can be content with we having a lot or we don't have a lot. And that is where we want to get to, because we realize that the things that we have are from God. And that should be a great source of contentment for all of us. Tim says that his study Bible in verse 6 gives a counter lesson that it's better to have little with peace than to have much with constant hunger for more. Or a strong work ethic is not wrong, but it needs to be balanced with an appreciation for the joys of life. Agree with both of those things. And honestly, for me, I would much rather have peace than toiling and striving and be aggravated all the time. I know my family would rather me be at peace than constantly toiling and striving. Doesn't mean I don't need to work hard, but I just need to make sure that I'm working hard for the right things with the right focus. That is where we need to be focusing our life. And I agree, Kristen. I think this time right here, right now is absolutely teaching us to shift our focus to really what is important and what we should be looking at. Bill brings up a great point. He says that really we should be looking at what is our motivation. And quite frankly, for the first 2 weeks of all of this whole COVID-19, that is really where I was at. I was really wrestling with, okay, you only preach because you can do it in a church full of people. You only do this because of the people looking at you on a Sunday. Like, why are you really doing this? So it really caused me to go back and look at the motivation as to why I preach and why I teach and why I live the way that I live and do things the way that I do things. It's been very, very humbling in a lot of ways and very eye-opening in some others. And so it's been a very good time for me. That's a great point, Bill. I think everything that we get our hands involved in, we should always consider the motivation. Why am I doing this? Now, for many of us, we don't want to live that way. We just want to live fancy-free and haphazard and not worry about any of that. But the truth of the matter is we have to consider that all the time. Why am I doing this? What's the point? Because if it's not to promote Christ or to drive home what Christ has done for us or to bring people to that hope, is it really worth it? Is it really worth it? So that was a spirited conversation there. So he says in verse 7, he says, then I returned and I saw vanity under the sun. He says, there is one alone without companion. He is neither son nor brother, yet there is no end to all his labors. Nor is his eye satisfied with riches, but he never asks, for whom do I toil and deprive myself of good? This also is vanity and a grave misfortune. He says, one of the things that we have that we need to be careful of protecting is our companionship, our friendships, our families. He says, this is the guy that works so hard, toils so much that he's basically cut off family, he's cut off friendships, he's cut off relationships, and he's put him in a self that when he dies, there's nobody coming behind him to look and say, wow, good job. Wow, I get to take the heritage or inheritance that he has left. There's nobody to come alongside him and do life with him, and that is hard. Listen, it has been lonely at the church by myself. You will see that tomorrow on the video. It's been lonely. It's not fun being by myself. Now, I enjoy my quiet time like the next guy, but man, do I miss Charlie and Janice and Tim and Danielle and Brandy when they're there, and you guys when you're there on Wednesdays and Sundays. I miss the people interaction. And it is so hard for us to see what he's talking about because we are a generation of people that like to be around others. And he's talking about we can get so distracted with trying to climb that corporate ladder or gain all that we can that we lose sight of what really is important. And again, this time that we have in our quarantine situations has allowed us and afforded us the opportunity to shift our focus back to God and our families, because that is the thing that He has given us to oversee and to take care of and to be a part of more than anything else. Shannon adds and says this, just to add to your comment about the COVID changes, I think it's teaching people to truly appreciate the small things in life, forcing more quality family time, and slowing down. Absolutely. The question and challenge will be, when we are able to get back to normal, whatever that's going to look like, then what? I remember distinctly the movement from 9/11, from our own world of trying to do our own little thing to back to the church. We got to be at the church. We got to be praying people and getting into the Word and going after God. And how far removed are we now from that? And will this be any different? Hopefully it won't be. Hopefully this will be a new movement, a new challenge, and a new set of opportunities for us to be the church, but not just in the church, but outside in our communities. So yeah, I do think it's a great opportunity for us to see things for what they really are. Um, verse 9, we're going to keep on moving. He says, and it's talking about companionship and loneliness. He says, two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who's alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. Again, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Though one may be overpowered by another, two can withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. There is so much in that. He gives a lot of examples to help us understand the importance of companionship. And it's not just talking about being married. He's talking about having that person, that someone that you can talk with and do life with, that helps watch over you, hold you accountable, and encourage you, but also when you get in a spot can come and tell you what you need to hear and to pick you back up and take you along the way. Um, he talks about how if we are attacked, two against one's always better, but if you can have three, that's even better. When you have that camaraderie and that companionship of two or three people with you, man, what a great thing that you have. For me, I am very careful as to who I connect with and how deeply I connect with them. Um, and I'm finding it more important day by day, year by year, to find some inner people that I can really connect with to not only hold me accountable, but to be my sounding board, to be my safe people that I can say exactly what I need to say and how I need to say it to get it off my chest so that I can work through whatever I'm working through. And those are hard to find. Those people are hard to find, especially when you get in that spot and you don't know where to go. Those are the ones that you can go to and find that support and that encouragement, both in the positive and in the realistic statements that they need to tell you to help you get to where you need to be. Rich brings up a great point of small groups or our go groups. That's a great point of what those are about. It's finding that small niche of people that you can really just pour into their lives as they pour into your life, and create that bond that no matter what comes into your life, that's the group you can go to and work with and be a part of. It can be a go group. It can be an inner circle, just like Amy talks about, and Bonnie says a work team. It's all of those things, and it can be a spouse, it can be a sibling, it can be a parent. It's all of those opportunities rolled into one to be what we need to be for each other, and that's really what Solomon's talking about. He's like, we don't want to work in such a way that we're just amassing all this stuff while we're pushing people away, because at some point something's going to take place and happen that you're going to need that support system to get you back to where you need to be. The people that know you best and can tell you what you need to hear the most. And I agree, Dorothy. I don't want yes people in my life. I want people that are going to tell me what I need to hear in the way that I need to hear it. People that are going to love me enough to be truthful to me, but not truthful in such a way that it's mean spirited. I have surrounded myself with people that tell me what I need to hear, and not just what I want to hear. And that's the type of people I want to be around. You will find in our leadership at our church that we don't we don't tell each other what we want each other to hear. We tell each other what is need to be said, and I think that has been so refreshing in our church for so very long that that's exactly what I believe Solomon is talking about. We need people to be honest with us, companions that will do life with us in such a way that will help us to accomplish all that we need to accomplish. Yes, I agree, Amy. I don't want my ears tickled, but I don't want to be stepped on either. That's an important point. I don't want to be stepped on. I want to be encouraged. And then he talks about all of those wonderful things of how strong those bonds can be. We have to have those bonds, and it's so important for us to do that. Shannon Childs chimes in. One of the best things that Charlie taught me was about 3 circles, the inner circle being most important, but being able to move people in and out as circumstances change and understanding their role. That is absolutely, absolutely true. So kudos to you, Charlie, for great teaching there, buddy. But absolutely, that is a great point. So if we're moving on with Ecclesiastes chapter 4, especially as Solomon is continuing to kind of talk about 4 groups of people here. The first one, if you will remember, were those who were the oppressed. And then he talked about the envy, and now he's talked about loneliness, and now he's talking about the decay of the worker, just the one that works so hard to accomplish all the things that he's accomplished, but the reality is it's not going to get him anywhere. It's not going to help him in the long run, especially when we're talking about spiritual things, unless that's the thing that we're going after. And here's what he says in verse 13. He says, better a poor and wise youth than an old and foolish king who will be admonished no more. So he's talking about the kids that are kind of, I don't know, wise and youthful right now with their energy and their vigor and their passion. Like, they're in a good spot. But that guy that has endured life and worked hard and toiled over all of these things, that's the guy that's feeling the pressure. And he's realizing that, you know what, I've kind of gotten to the place where I've learned about all I'm going to learn. And there's not a lot of teaching anymore for him. And I think the next few verses are so important because he alludes to the idea that the youth think they've got it all figured out, and the older guy now realizes that he didn't know half of what he thought he knew. And I've heard that said so many times, and I am getting to the place where that I'm learning that. My energy and passion and my vigor is kind of subsiding, and I'm realizing I'm a lot dumber than I thought I was. There's a lot more things that I've got to learn and change and work on than what I thought I had to work on when I was younger. I thought I kind of had it all figured out, and many people will tell you that I thought I had it figured out. And I'm realizing I had nothing figured out. And there are a lot of things that I'm still trying to figure out in my life. So he goes on in verse 14 and he says, for he comes out of prison to be king, although he was born poor in his kingdom. I saw all the living who walk under the sun. They were with the second youth who stands in his place. There was no end of all the people over whom he was made king. Yet those who come afterward will not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and grasping for the wind. So he talks about life with all the hard work and begins at the youthful and the wise. And then after all the accomplishments that the youthful and the wise are able to accomplish in their older life, they realize they're not as smart as what they once thought that they were. He talks about being enslaved to the grind. They come out of the prison to be king. He's talking about that spot where we feel oppressed, and we move out of that into a place of we've gained some power, we've gained some authority, but really for what? Because you got to remember where you came from. You came from the poor. You came from this spot, and really nothing has been accomplished because it's all pointless. It's all vanity. Verse 15, he goes on and talks about he sees the ones that used to stand and were there. Their youth who thought they had it all and they had it all figured out, but he's realizing really quick that the second youth, they've got it together. They're in that stage that they once were, if that makes sense. Let me go back and say that again. So he's talking about the old, the ones that are living. I saw the ones that are walking under the sun, that's been doing life for a while, and they're looking back at the youth in their vigor and their excitement and the wisdom that they think they have. And the older generation is remembering, I remember when I was like that. I remember when I thought I had it all figured out. He says there was no end of all the people over whom he was made king. It never stopped. All the people that this person was king over or had power over, they're all coming after his job. They're all moving in his direction. They were all in the same position that he was. They started at the bottom and they're working their way up. And I love how he ends it. He says, yet those who come after will not rejoice in him. He's saying all these guys that are moving up, they're not going to rejoice in his accomplishments because they're going after new accomplishments. They're going to try to do that newest, best, better thing. I mean, Thomas Edison created the light bulb, but now I've got two super bright LEDs shining in my face. Guarantee you, the guys that created these lights weren't thinking about Thomas Edison. They're just trying to take what Thomas Edison did and made it better and make a name for themselves. They're not giving credit to Edison. They're giving credit to themselves of what they've been able to accomplish. I think it's so important that we remember where we came from, give kudos to those that have earned it, but to always try to move forward with what has been accomplished. I want to make it better. The next guy that comes after me at Townsend Church, I want him to take whatever little I've been able to accomplish, forget me, and build on it and go reach more people. Go make it better than what we've ever been able to accomplish. But not for his sake, but for the glory of God's sake. It's not why I'm doing this. I don't want all the pat on the back and the recognition. I want God to be glorified. I want people to look and say, wow, I remember that hillbilly from North Carolina that didn't study to be a pastor, that was just a simple math teacher, and look what God did. That's what God did. Alan didn't do that. God did that with Alan, through Alan. And that's all that I'm here for. I'm here to be used by God. And I look around and I don't see the next replacement yet, but he's there. He's around here somewhere. Maybe he's upstairs eating dinner with my family. Maybe it's a youngster that's in college, or maybe it's one of our own youth at our church that are growing up watching all this unfold. And maybe they're going to step right in and take this church to that next level. They're going to have that youthful vigor. They're going to have that excitement and that passion and have the wisdom that they have to be able to get things moving forward. And I'm going to be moving out. I'm going to be in the place of saying, you know what? God bless you. Good luck, buddy. I'm out. Not anytime soon, just so you know. That's not a hint that I'm trying to leave or I'm ready to be gone. I'm not even close. But you know it's going to happen. It happens all the time. We're always being replaced. And so what we want to do is we want to set the stage for that next person, that when they move in, they can move on from there. That's what we want. And so it's just encouraging to hear him say, you know, it's not going to happen. They're not going to really remember a whole lot of what you accomplished, but they're going to be able to build on what you accomplished. And he even says, listen, it's all vanity and grasping for the wind anyway. We're building a church. Who's to say in 30 years it's not gone? Who's to say that? We can't. Only God knows. And so what we are responsible for is the right here, right now, to go after God, to do our best to see all that he has in front of us and all that he's trying to do. And you know what? Whatever he wants to do with it is what he's going to do with it. I'm just along for the ride, and I pray that you're along for the ride to be used by God. I hate using this phrase, but I'm happy to be a pawn. Use me however you see fit. Move me wherever you want to move me. And then when you're done with me, I'm good with that. Now, that's not fun for me to say. It's not, hopefully not fun for you to hear or to think about, but I'm here to serve him at his pleasure, whatever he wants. If he wants to sit me on the shelf and let me just be a spot on the wall or a fly on the wall for the rest of my life and to do what he's called me to do of serving him, great. I'm in that. I'm all for it. But that's hard for us. It's so hard for us. Bonnie is chiming in, and she says, "Learn the hard way that you can't catch lightning in a bottle twice. It's better to be open to new things." Absolutely. And listen, it is hard to be open for new things, and I'm a guy that likes to think outside the box, but I like my creature comforts as well. I don't like to go too far outside the box unless I really know what it is. But I agree. When I know that God is behind it, you're going to have a hard time stopping me. Um, I just I trust Him that much, and this is about Him anyway. And so if He's pushing me in that direction, I'd rather not stop it. I'd rather not be in His way. I think that's a bad idea for me. And so any more thoughts on chapter 4? That was a lot of me talking. It was kind of a short chapter, and they kind of block up quite a bit. But I did find it intriguing that he looked at 4 different scenarios of people. And really, we can find ourselves in any one of those 4, if not all 4, at some point in time. We've got the oppressed people, those that get envious about things, those that are lonely, and then those that are decaying because of the working of how we work. Bill says Ephesians chapter 5. So I'm going to turn over there and read that to you guys so you can kind of know what he's referring to, because I don't know that passage right off the top of my head. I know a lot, but not that one. Maybe I do actually. Oh, yep, I did. He says, "See then that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is." I love that. That is so good. And it's good for us to see that, hey, listen, you know what? We have a prime opportunity right now to jump on and do something, to get in tune with God and to get in tune with His Word and to grow. Like, this is an opportunity of a lifetime for us to share the gospel and to share all that we can. We need to make great use of our time. And I'll be the first to tell you, sometimes I'm not. It is hard. It's hard to do that. I get distracted with kids. I get distracted with my wife. I get distracted with the dog. I get distracted with golf. I get distracted with projects around the house that I haven't had time to get to. We get distracted about all kinds of things. And the truth of the matter is, we need to make great use of the time that is in front of us. Um, Again, not just for our benefit, but for God's benefit, for His glory. Because anything outside of that, Solomon would say, waste of time. Waste of time. Any other thoughts? Rich, I like that idea of iron sharpening iron. That is a true statement. And that's hard for us because we like to sharpen everybody else, but we certainly don't want to be sharpened by anybody else. Dorothy, I would agree with that. I'm sure it's very difficult to live alone. It is not easy. Um, can't be easy at all. I'd have a hard time with it, to be truthful. I'd have to find lots of distractions. I'd probably paint my house more than once a week just to stay busy. Something. Any other thoughts? Any other comments you want to share? Or maybe this would be a good time to transition into some prayer requests, some quick notes on the side of anybody that we can be praying for. I know last week I missed Lou and Stephanie. Lou has a cousin who is, I know last week was in really bad shape with COVID-19. So maybe Stephanie or Lou, if you can kind of chime in, let me know how he's doing. Last week we prayed for Emerson, and I got a text that evening saying that actually her fever had broke earlier that day. She had spent some time outside, so that was great news. Seems like some things are moving in a good, positive direction as far as the coronavirus is concerned. There's all kinds of different talks swirling around of maybe being able to open back up or open the churches back up or all kinds of different stuff. So we're kind of keeping our ear peeled on that and paying attention to what's coming down the pipeline and keeping you informed as best we can. Oh, yay! Good news. Thanks, Lou, for sharing that. He is on his cousin's on blood thinners and he's recovering well. That is great news because if I'm not mistaken, he was in a coma last week, which didn't sound good. But I'm glad to see that he's doing well. So thanks for sharing that. And we'll obviously continue praying for him. Miss Becky, who's been struggling with some cancer growth, she's got a CT scan on the 23rd and see if it's growing and when she will start radiation. Tim says, continue prayers for our administrators. Tough decisions to be made with the schools. Yeah, I know Matt Burrows and Jen are on here, and Matt, dude, we're praying for you too as well, man. That's a lot. Um, any other prayer requests that I can pray for? Yes, Becky. Becky's been dealing with some health issues. This kind of has started since her mom's passing, and we just want to keep her in prayer for sure. Tom Shanahan, you guys remember Tom Shanahan and his wife? They've been down in Florida, but she's not doing well, and nor is Tom. Tom has developed some throat cancer that is really um, giving them a fit. And so they've got some things that are coming up. So we can please be praying for them. They have been such a blessing to our church and such an encouragement, even in this crisis that we're in. They're just awesome people. And I tell you, you'll be hard pressed to find people who love Jesus as much as they love Jesus. They are always just a sense of joy, and just a great source of joy and a source of encouragement. And so we just want to lift them up in prayer and be encouraging them as well. Any other prayer requests before I pray and duck off? I know some of you are without jobs. You've been kind of laid off or on furlough. Praying for you that God just watch over you and protect your finances. Um, Emma Matthews lost a cousin yesterday. That's on her mom's side. So we'll be praying for them as well. That's tough. All right. So I know there's a little bit of delay, so I'm going to go ahead and start praying. So I'll probably open my eyes to see if there's any that jump up. So don't fuss at me for opening my eyes while I'm praying. But what we got to do. So let's pray. God, I appreciate all that you do. Lord, thanks for a good talk tonight and a good opportunity for us to see how appropriate Ecclesiastes is for us. Solomon takes this time to reanalyze everything of his life and refocus on the things that are really important. And God, what an insight he is allowing us and challenged us to see in this moment of quarantine, of our life being put on pause, to really see what's important. God, I thank you for how you continue to move in our own hearts and our own lives, and how you open and unlock scripture to help us see what we really need to see, to hear what we really need to hear. God, thank you for being that inner voice, that spirit that lives within us, that guiding spirit that allows us to not be truly alone, even though emotionally we may feel that way. And Lord, I pray for those that are alone, especially during this time, that aren't getting a lot of the social interaction that we would normally have. Lord, I think of Emma and other special need friends that it doesn't make sense to them why they can't be with their friends. And I pray for those that are alone and those that don't quite get it, that you would just comfort them tonight. Thank you for the great report of Emerson and the great report of Lulu's cousin. God, I pray that you would continue to bless them, be with our friends that are without jobs or on furlough that aren't able to make money. I pray that you would just give them peace and comfort, knowing that you are watching over them. Give them courage to reach out when they need us. And God, help us in our groups, excuse me, to make sure that we're sharpening each other, that we're saying things that need to be said in such a way that will encourage each other and not tear each other down. Or I think of the Matthews as they have experienced a loss, that you would comfort their family members during this time. We've got, let me see here. Stephen Parsons is asking prayer for older family member who's been in the hospital for 2 weeks and not able to see his wife. It's not COVID related, but God, you know what's going on with him. And so I ask that you not only watch over him as he's in the ICU, but that you be with the family as they are separated from them. Um, we've got Brittany Ashmead, who began her treatments today. That's new news. And Lord, I pray that you would be with them. This is a sketchy time, and I pray that you would comfort Barb and Jim as they are dealing with all this, and the other family members. But God, most importantly, that you would protect Brittany in all this as her immune system will be lowered, and that you would just watch over her. And God, I think of Becky Harris as she's going in for her CAT scan. That you just give the doctors wisdom as they look over those scans and to know the right amount of treatment and how to deal with that. Be with Becky, God, as she's not only mourning the loss of her mom, but dealing with her own health issues as well as the other things that are going on. Pray that you would just comfort her and bring peace to her heart and soul. God, I celebrate and thank you for the life of the Shanahans, of what they were able to bring to our church and encourage our church, even in that time of transition. God, they were a great source of encouragement to us and still are. And so, God, may you hear our prayers on their behalf, that your hand of healing would be on them, whether that healing is to be restored to full health here or to restore to full health in your presence. God, you do what only you can do. Give them the peace and the comfort as only you can give through this time in their life. Um, Lord, Rosemarie is asking prayers for a friend's mom who's in critical condition in the hospital with a blood clot. God, that's serious in and of itself, but then surrounded by what else she might be able to contract while she's there. I pray that you would just, again, give the doctors wisdom, be with that family, comfort them as only you can. Tracy Daniels is asking for a friend, Cece, who is in the ICU due to corona. Guys, it's just a nasty little thing that is wreaking havoc on our nation and striking fear in a lot of hearts. But Lord, I pray that you would help us to be wise. Again, help us to redeem the time. Be with Cece, be with her family, cover them, allow her to have a full recovery. Lord, that's a lot. And God, I have a friend who is in a spot with decisions that he's having to make, that he's not wanting to have to make and shouldn't have to make, but he is. God, I pray that you would comfort his heart, even right now as I'm praying for him, that you would comfort him, um, that you would allow your spirit and your presence to be felt in his life right now, that you would just cover him and encourage him and um, give him the confidence and the wisdom to know the right thing to do. I prayed that you would be with the dad, that you would just watch over him as well. God, you're so good. You're so good. Even in the midst of chaos and in the midst of hurt and troubles, you're so good. You never stop being good. May we spread that good news. May we take it upon ourselves to spread hope wherever we can spread hope. And I appreciate all that you do. God, I'm going to close this prayer by simply saying, thank you. Thank you for being the God that we read about. Thank you for being the God that we can experience every day in our life. But thank you for being the God that we know that you're going to be someday when we stand before you as the righteous judge and you look at our lives and see the blood of Jesus over us and say, come on in to your eternal rest. God, we long for that day and we look forward to it. But we praise you and we commit to serve you the best that we can until that day. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you guys. Please know that we love you, that we are praying for you, that you can do this, and that it will not be much longer. It's just a season, and we will be together again. Just hang on. It's coming. Don't forget to check out the announcement video tomorrow. Again, I'm so excited about it. It's so dumb, but I hope it'll bring a smile to your face and bring a little joy to your heart. And again, sermon will be up Sunday morning with the kids' classes following after that. Try to stay connected. We got the teenage class and the college class happening right now and right after this. God bless you. Stay in tune. Stay in touch. Reach out to us if you need us. We're here for you. God bless you. Have a good night.